Module Overview. In visual art, texture is more than surface detail. It is the emotional and structural DNA of a painting. Texture conveys realism, abstraction, symbolism, and storytelling. It draws the viewer in evoking touch, memory, and response. This module focuses on understanding, creating, and manipulating texture using various materials, tools, additives, and surface alterations within oil, acrylic, and watercolor painting. You will explore both visual, implied texture, and tactile, actual texture, and how to control them depending on the medium. The module also delves deeply into how artists can manipulate painting surfaces, canvas, board, paper, experimental substrates, use additives, gels, pastes, sand, wax, and experiment with unconventional tools, palette knives, sponges, stencils, scrapers, to generate layered, rich, and multi-sensory works. In addition, the psychological, symbolic, and compositional implications of texture will be analyzed across styles from classical realism and impressionism to expressionism and abstract art. Learning objectives. By the end of this module, you will understand the difference between visual and tactile texture, identify natural versus artificial textures and their symbolic/functional roles in painting, manipulate painting surfaces and grounds to enhance adhesion and expressive intent, use traditional and experimental tools to build texture in oil, acrylic, and watercolor, understand medium-specific techniques for impasto, scumbling, dry brushing, glazing, masking, scratching, pouring, and more. Explore how light and shadow interact with textured surfaces. Analyze historical and contemporary painters who use texture as a central element. Section 1. Understanding texture in painting. Types of texture. Actual, tactile. Texture, raised or physical surface that can be felt, e.g., impasto. Visual, implied. Texture, an illusion of texture painted using light, detail, and edge variation, e.g., the look of fur, fabric, or metal. Psychological and emotional texture. Rough textures equals tension, rawness, energy. Smooth textures equals calmness, order, elegance. Chaotic textures equals confusion, dynamic movement. Clean or refined textures equals intimacy, silence, sterility. Section 2. Tools and materials for creating texture. Traditional tools. Brushes, round, fan, dry. Palette knives. Brayers. Sponges, combs, and blades. Additives and mediums. Acrylic, gel medium, texture paste, sand gel, modeling paste, pumice gel, crackle medium. Oil, cold wax medium, alkyd gels, marble dust, linseed putty. Watercolor, salt, masking fluid, cling wrap, rubbing alcohol, wax resist. Surfaces and grounds, canvas, smooth, rough, gessoed, unprimed. Wood panel, absorbent or sealed. Paper, hot press, cold press, rough grain. Experimental grounds, fabric, metal sheets, glass, burlap, cardboard. Section 3. Texture techniques in each medium oil painting. Impasto, thick layers applied with a palette knife or brush. Scumbling, semi-dry brushing over a dry underpainting to allow undercolor to peek through. Sgraffito, scratching into wet paint with a sharp tool. Dry brush, minimal paint on a dry bristle. Brush creates scratchy texture. Palette knife. Painting, sculpting forms and layers with knives, not brushes. Acrylic painting, textural mediums. Modeling paste for 3D buildup. Gel mediums to control transparency. Collage and mixed media, embedding fabric, string, paper, or sand into layers. Pouring and skinning, creating layered acrylic skins or fluid textures. Crackle finish, using crackle gel to simulate cracked surfaces. Stencil and masking, layered applications with hard or soft edges. Watercolor painting, granulation, natural pigment separation on textured paper. Salt texture, salt absorbs pigment to form crystallized texture. Masking fluid, blocks paint to preserve paper texture underneath. Rubbing alcohol, repels pigment to create blooms and craters. Dry brush on cold press, uneven paper lifts pigment for scratchy textures. Wax, resist, Crayons or candles repel paint, preserving brightness underneath. Section 4. Strategic use of texture in composition. Balance and contrast. Smooth versus rough areas create visual rhythm. Flat zones can emphasize high-relief focal areas. Focal point creation. Texture can guide the eye and draw attention. High contrast texture amidst smooth surroundings can anchor a composition. Symbolism. Torn textures equals decay, grief, or erosion. Smooth glass-like textures equals idealism, fantasy, detachment. Section 5. Historical and contemporary case studies. Historical examples. Van Gogh. Expressive impasto to depict energy and emotion. Rembrandt. Textural chiaroscuro on skin and fabric. Turner. Atmospheric implied texture using thin glazes and brush flicks. Contemporary examples. Anselm Kiefer. Heavy texture with straw, lead, and ash. Gerhard Richter. Scraping techniques on oil surfaces. Yayoi Kusama. Repetitive texture and dot-based structure. Julie Miretu. Layered, chaotic texture in acrylic and ink. Section 6. Studio projects and experiments. Practice assignments. Texture replication. Paint convincing implied textures of wood, metal, and fur using only flat paint. Impasto portrait. Create a bust or face with thick textures and palette knives only. Acrylic surface study. Apply 5 different gel mediums to test their textural effects. Watercolor. Abstract. Use salt, alcohol, masking fluid, and granulating pigments to create a visual symphony of texture. Texture collage. Combine mixed materials into a multimedia painting on canvas.